Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Merle Massey. I am the Executive Director of the Do More Agriculture Foundation. And thanks so much for joining us today. I am new to the Do More Ag Foundation. I think I've been here 5 months now. And the joke that Michaela and I say is that nobody's fired me yet, so I'm still here. Thank you so much for joining us today. What we've done is that Do More has helped communities to host community events in conjunction with funding and sponsorship from FCC, Farm Credit Canada, for I think the last 6-7 years. It's been quite a number of years, almost as long as Do More Ag has been in existence. And every year that fund has grown, and we've been able to help and support a larger number of communities right across Canada to host community level events to sort of create a space for the conversation for mental health in your community. And so what we thought we'd do this year, which is a slight departure, is to invite all of those who have provided us with applications with a bit of an overview of our process and to give you a little bit of a um, sort of pull back the curtain, as you will, and take a look at an inside view of what happens on Do More Ag's end and how we help, as well as to provide a space for you to ask any questions and we can answer any questions. And with us today is Michaela Broughton, who's our community engagement manager here at the Do More Ag Foundation. And Michaela has been doing this for a long time and knows almost every kind of hiccup and problem that a community can come up with that has happened in the last number of years. So Michaela, if you could introduce yourself, we'll start there.
Sure. I'm Michaela. I'm the one who will be setting up all of the community events with all of you. Yeah, I'm here for any help and guidance through the process of setting up your mental health workshop for your community.
Thank you so much. And Michaela has been a fount of knowledge for me as I get up to speed and learn all things Do More. So we're going to launch right in, and at the end there will be an opportunity. We will stop the recording, and there'll be an opportunity then for you to ask any questions that you may have that's outstanding. So let's go, because we know that you all have busy days, and we thank you for joining us today. So I'm not going to read every word here, just so you know. We are a national level charitable foundation. We're dedicated to championing mental health across Canadian agriculture. We were founded by farmers in Saskatchewan, but we are a national level charitable foundation. And we're really interested in helping communities to shape space for the conversation. And so that's really, really important to us. And the Community Fund for Mental Health Education is proudly presented by Farm Credit Canada, and it's supported by every Do More Ag partner and many local businesses and every community with whom we've worked through the last number of years. And so we're really, really pleased to have such a wonderful champion in terms of FCC to support communities to create space, to host a community workshop, to create space to have conversations around mental health in each community. And so thank you all for being here today. If you've already made an application, that's great. If you haven't, but you're just interested in learning more, that's also great. We have not yet filled all of our spaces for community level events here in Canada this year. So if you haven't yet put in an application, we certainly can provide the link for that. I'll get Michaela to put the link for the applications into the chat. And we hope what we're able to do is that we're able to work with communities, and there are 4 options for workshops that you can potentially host. The first is our signature workshop here at Do More Ag, and that's Talk, Ask, Listen. Talk, Ask, Listen was created by the Do More Ag Foundation in conjunction with partners and facilitators, and it's a mental health literacy workshop. It is specifically focused on not just helping people to understand what is mental health, but also to really think through what they can do more, both as an individual and at the community level. And this is something that we're working on building and shaping and creating. So just so that communities feel comfortable to not only just host a one-off workshop, but what maybe to think through what they can do to make sure that their community is a welcoming and warm and encouraging place for any member of their community who might happen to have a mental health injury, an illness, or a challenge. Another workshop that we offer in conjunction with excellent partners that we have both with Ontario Farmer Wellness as well as the Canadian Centre for Agricultural Wellbeing is a session called In the Know. It was originally developed by Ontario Veterinary College, and it builds mental health knowledge and helps farmers to increase their help seeking. Basically, help seeking means that they're willing to go and get help. The third that we offer is Safe Talk, and all of these so far are generally about 4-hour sessions. Safe Talk is specific to learning more about suicide and suicide prevention, and so that the people who come and take a Safe Talk workshop feel more prepared to help another person who might be thinking about suicide. And the fourth is our largest offering. It is the most intensive offering that our community fund is able to support a community to host, and that's mental health first aid. So mental health first aid is it says 8+ hours because there's 8 hours in person, but there's also some pre-work that needs to be done. It's about 4 hours or so of pre-work with about 8 hours of in-person instruction. It's facilitated by a certified instructor. We generally use Bridges Health, but we do also work with the Mental Health Commission of Canada. There are a number of facilitators across Canada who are accredited to facilitate mental health first aid, and we are growing the number of facilitators that we use right across Canada. So it's similar to regular first aid and focuses on mental health crisis response. So those are the 4 that a community can sort of pick and choose from. So think of this as a bit like a smorgasbord. I would say about 60% of the communities who work with us request Talk, Ask, Listen. And a very similar workshop is In the Know. And so communities in Ontario in particular, or communities right across Canada where we might have an In the Know mental health facilitator, then that's another option. Safe Talk is often requested by communities who have had a recent suicide event in their community, or it's just something that they're maybe creating some particular awareness around. And mental health first aid, because it is a little bit more of an intensive course, communities absolutely have requested it and have successfully run it in their community, and so that's an option as well. And so running through those 4 options. Now we wanted to jump into more or less what to expect as a community champion. So community champions are the lead person who is in your community, who has applied to us for funding usually, or maybe you pass it on to someone else. And what we provide is financial and strategic support from Do More Ag to help you host this workshop. But a community champion is the community's workshop, not the Do More Ag workshop. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that that was really, really clear, because you know your community best. You know how your community signs up for things. You know how your community shares information one person to another. And so we have some general guidelines and some practices that we're going to be sharing about and talking about today. But all of these are completely adaptable to your particular community and your situation. So a community champion is generally the first sort of piece to hosting a workshop after you've reached out to Do More Ag and have been approved for funding if you need it. It's a bit like organizing a wedding. You know, you have an ideal date in mind, but you have to work with us to make sure that we have a facilitator that's in place for the workshop that you had kind of thought about, and if we have a facilitator in mind or available for that day, if you have a venue that suits everything. So it's a little bit like organizing a wedding, and things have to be a little bit fluid to start with, just until we get a few of those pieces and parts nailed down. I know that back in 1996, when my husband and I were organizing our wedding, we didn't get our first date, which meant that we were later in August than what we had intended, and we hit harvest. We actually had to stop the combine, go get married, and then get back on the combine. Not ideal for a farm household. So, you know, I do recognize that there's a lot of moving pieces and parts. After that, once that's those first few bits that are in place, I'd actually, Michaela, do you want to kind of just take through some of the rest of it? I'm going to give myself some water.
Sure. Yeah, after we have a venue and a date set, then you can continue on to work out more of the details of the day, like setting up a caterer if you're wanting to host a lunch with your event, making sure you have audio visual equipment in your venue that supports our facilitator's presentation, making sure all the tables and chairs and everything are there to be set up for the day of. And then also marketing your event, which plays a huge role of the community champion. We do a little bit of the marketing on our end, but since we're dealing with so many community events, we can only do so much, and you know your community the best. So you know the best ways to spread the word of your workshop with your community. And
Absolutely.
another
Go
big
ahead,
piece is
Michaela.
bringing your community partners as well, which we'll dive into in the next couple slides.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a few slides that kind of break down these steps just a little bit more, and so we're going to dive into that. But yeah, what I really wanted to reiterate is that do more, is the flow through from SCC for funding, and we can help you organize and coordinate, and we'll help find the facilitator, and there's a few pieces that we can do for you on the back end, but primarily this is your community, your workshop, and you need to put boots on the ground to get people invested and connected. And so we have some suggestions on how that works really, really well. And again, these are sort of best practices that past community events that Michaela and past communities have sort of shared and we've created. And this is all also in a workbook that we also share. We are going to be posting it on our website, and we also share it out via email through to all of our community champions. So again, working with Michaela, who also works with the facilitators to make sure that we've got a date that works. Some of the things that we've noticed around setting dates is that if you can align your workshop with an existing event, that does help to boost attendance. If you've got any community fundraisers coming up, any particular ag events, if you've got groups in your community that sort of have a mandate around mental health or health in general, and that they would like to get together with you, that's good. And we'll talk about activating your network in a couple of slides. In terms of timing, thinking through the busy agriculture season, depending on what kind of agriculture is in your particular area, in some places seasonality plays a very big role. And so just paying attention to that, will timing affect attendance at your event? Or are you more of a rural community where, yes, you have farming as part of your community, but a lot of the people that maybe you're looking to have at your event, that seasonality maybe doesn't matter quite as much. So that can happen too. We do encourage you to plan far enough in advance. 2 months is good, although we have seen excellent events happen with a shorter time frame than that. It's the difficult piece then is the venue and the facilitator and getting people on board. But sometimes communities just work really, really fast, and they prefer not a long lead time. They just like to, make things happen really fast. And so we try and adjust for that as much as possible. It does take time to advertise and spread the word. And especially if you're going to activate partners, and we'll talk about this a little bit, sometimes they need a little bit of lead time if they're going to put your event in their newsletter or advertise on their social media, that kind of thing. So a little bit of lead time does usually help for that. Michaela, you're the best at venue. If you can take this. Thank you.
Yeah, so you know your community best as the community champion. So picking a venue that's accessible for everybody, that can hold as many people as you think is gonna attend your event. And then on this slide, there's a bit of a checklist of everything that you'll need for the day of. We do have a workbook for Talk, Ask, Listen. So having seating and probably tables and pens and that for everybody to sit comfortably and take notes as well. Yeah, and then having all this set up before the facilitator's arrival is very important too.
An interesting one in rural communities is that internet access. And the reason why it matters for a couple of things. Number one, as part of the training session, there is a couple of videos. And so having internet access to be able to play those videos is really helpful. We have had facilitators able to hotspot off of a phone and kind of, get it done then, which is fine if everybody's physically in the room. But we've also helped communities, because community can be, it doesn't just have to be a physical place, such as I live in Biggar, Saskatchewan. We have had many community groups that have come to us, let's say the Chicken Farmers of Canada, and they actually hosted a virtual event. So we needed to make sure that everyone coming in, they had virtual. I was in Abbotsford, BC in March, and they hosted a hybrid event. So there were some people physically in the room and there were some people who came in online. And so it was really important on that day to make sure that the internet capability was very high. It increased the number of people who were able to attend, which was fantastic, but it did require that we had to have internet access so that everyone online plus in the room was able to see everything sort of in real time and talk to one another. So that was important. And when we get to the end, we'll reference the budget in terms of what Do More Ag is able to reimburse as part of our support for your community. This is probably the biggest thing that we really wanted to talk about today. What we know is that the more community partners you engage, and the sooner you engage them, you will not only increase your attendance, you'll increase your awareness. And so we wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time with this, because reaching out to community partners and getting them on board and excited for the event is absolutely a key to success. And so local businesses and agricultural commodity groups really encourage you to talk to your local health and your emergency services groups, as well as RCMP. They can tend to be really, really good people to have in the room as well. Local media, newspapers and radio, they're excellent in terms of sharing the news, and oftentimes they'll do it for you for free because this is a really important community event. So getting those partners on board early is great. Local government, so whether you live in a rural municipality or whether you live in a small town, but local governments, chambers of commerce, and regional businesses are also often very, very interested, willing, and helpful. Sometimes they might even have space. Let's say it's a large local business that actually has a meeting room that's large enough for you to use for free, and that they have internet. So that would be an excellent partner. And then that's something that you wouldn't necessarily have to pay for. Sports clubs, 4-H clubs, oftentimes they're very interested in, they have things going on in their own learning that ties back to mental health. And so they'd be very interested in joining. And of course, faith-based communities, churches of any kind, or any kind of service clubs are really good partners. When you activate more community partners, what we know is that not only are they able to promote the event to their staff and to their customers, but it actually will bring more people in. Let's say that you have a local agriculture business and they have 4 or 5 agronomists, for example, on staff. Agronomists have to have 30 to 40 hours every year towards their professional development. And so this, that 4-hour workshop on mental health is something that oftentimes can count towards their own professional development hours. Same with credit unions and banks. Anyone in a leadership capacity, same with actually health foundations as well, and health and emergency response. Oftentimes they need some things like this that can count towards their professional development time. So they're really, really excellent to bring on board. And the earlier that you can bring them on board, and then they can plan it into their schedule, the better. Sponsors are also able to sponsor specific event costs. Let's say printing up those booklets. If you have a local newspaper that has a small little printing press and they were able to print up the booklets and donate them to it. Sometimes catering will do it for a cheaper cost, or venue rental. Again, as I mentioned, partners will oftentimes chip in for that. Promotional materials, advertising in newsletters, newspapers, putting up posters in their community. These sorts of things. So the more partners you bring on board, the better. It also shares the work, because getting people to come, Do More is very, very transparent about this. The minute we talk about mental health, 2 things happen. Number 1, people will say, my mental health is fine, I don't need to go. And so they have a prejudged assumption that this is some kind of a workshop to help people work on their own individual mental health. And our workshops often do cover some of those things. And so they do that, but that isn't necessarily the intent or the purpose of these workshops. The workshops are meant to allow communities to create space for the conversation, right? So that you're showing at the community level that it is important to talk about mental health, and that there is a community responsibility to making sure that we talk about mental health, because we know that people are often afraid of what their community will think if they're facing mental health adversity, and so they won't reach out and they won't speak up. So that's one aspect, is sort of to get people to understand the purpose of the workshop and what it's for. And it's not just because, you know, you're trying to help people who maybe have poor mental health and to get them to feel better. The second thing that happens is that there is a built-in sense of sort of fear and stigma, and we all have it. We're all raised with it. It's embedded in us because of media and the books that we read and the stories that we consume online. And so oftentimes people will see the words mental health and they'll automatically self-select out and say, yeah, it's good, I'm glad you're having it, I don't want to come. And so overcoming that, and Do More is very transparent that it does take work to overcome that reticence, and to create this as a space where people are interested and willing and happy to come. So that's where we go to the advertising plan, and we have some suggestions for that as well. And Michaela, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest parts that you'll play as the community champion. It takes longer than you'll expect to spread the word and fill the seats in your workshop. So making sure you give yourself enough time to do this. Yeah, reaching out to those community partners to share and getting their staff or their clients involved in your event really helps. Asking them if you can hang posters in their offices or their stores, whatever it may be. Posting your posters around town. If you have local radio, you could reach out to them, ask if you can get an ad out on your local community radio. Maybe they'll do it for no cost for you. Your own social media or your community partner's social media is a good way to advertise, but we often see a community just post on their social media once or twice, and that isn't enough to spread the news to fill seats in your workshop. Word of mouth is strong in small communities, and if you have those local event boards, we suggest to use those, but you know your community best and what will work the best for spreading the word in your own community.
Just as an example, we've had communities that tell us that, so Do More will provide you with an online, we use Eventbrite, and that people can register for the event online. And that's one of the ways that Do More can help you track who has registered. However, that doesn't work for every community. There are some communities that don't like that kind of online registration, would prefer not, or it just doesn't suit the people in their community. And so they'll supplement that with a sign-up sheet, whether it's at the local government office or the local coffee shop or wherever it is that they put it. And then it just really becomes a matter of communication to make sure that Michaela knows that you've done that and how many people have signed up on that list as well. So having that two-way communication and letting us know what methods you're using to allow people to sign up and register is really, really important. Yeah, so that's exactly what I said. We do create an Eventbrite registration page, and we will share that link with you, and you can use it in all your promotions. And we'll also have a QR code that gets put on the poster, so when people are walking by, they can just, you know, sort of scan that QR code and then register that way. But again, if that doesn't necessarily work for your community and you want to use a different way to do it, then by all means do that. We also design posters and social media graphics, which we share with you. So there's a poster size, and then there's two different sizes of social media cards. And feel free to, you know, use them, and they'll have the event and the date and the time and the venue on them. And you can, you know, share them, and you can share them with your own contacts and say, absolutely, you can share them more broadly. It doesn't, and we will also share them from the Do More Ag account, but we will never assume that everybody in your community is following Do More. So that's why we need to make sure that you are also activating all of your own ways that you can. And so we've reiterated a lot of these and kind of popped out some of these examples, and I won't go through them all because I'm sure that you know them. But that word of mouth promotion particularly when you live in a rural community. I live in a rural community, and we still have phone trees. You know, if somebody passes away and our ladies group is in charge of lunch, you know, then somebody phones me, and then I've got a list of 3 people that I phone, and I let them know who's on sandwiches and who's on dainties and who's on coffee and whatever, you know, and so those sorts of phone trees, it's a very rural thing. Michaela's like, really, phone tree? I'm like, yeah, that's still a thing. And and so if you have those sorts of things, that's good. If you have email contacts, I know a friend of mine, every June he does the Ride for Dad to raise money for prostate cancer, and he sends out his stuff by email. And so if you have people that have sort of a robust local email list, that's another way to get the word out. So, you know, think about it in as many ways as you can. Use all the methods that you can, but definitely word of mouth promotion and just phoning people and asking them to come. Um, People hate to say no to you to your face, so that works really, really well. On the day of the final checklist, make sure that your facilitator, if you like had a bad snowstorm the night before, you might have to move things by an hour waiting for your facilitator to get there. That's happened. So making sure that your facilitator is in place, caterer, that the venue is set up. Again, you'll see from this picture that people are sitting and that they have space to kind of, you know, write down some jot notes. You don't have to have that if you don't have a space in your community that works, but it is pretty handy. And a lot of our workshop, particularly the Talk, Ask, Listen workshop, there's a lot of community discussion. And so that is quite helpful to have a space for people to jot down notes. That your workbooks or any other materials that you might like to have, that they're printed, and that the audio-visual equipment is set up and working and the internet is working. So these are some of the things. And of course, if you are feeding people, that the caterer is in place and that everything is there. Again, it's just like organizing a wedding, right? You know, you need to know how many registrants you have so you can talk to the caterer so that they can make the food, you know. So yeah, it's if you're hosting an in-person event. Sometimes communities do choose to do online, which is also completely fine. Again, depending on how you who you are as a community. Perhaps you're a regional research group, and all of your people are sort of, you know, out and about, and it makes more sense to have yours online. That's perfectly acceptable. And then, of course, anything that we have to say around catering, refreshments, that kind of thing, then you're in a different space. One of the things around online is that it does present a couple of different opportunities. We have had local community events where the majority of people are in person and the facilitator comes in online for whatever reason. Maybe they couldn't physically get there, or we didn't have a facilitator for that particular session who was nearby. Mental health first aid would be a good example of that. Sometimes those can be they're in the moment, you're all there at the same time, but they're digital and online. So that's an example of facilitation that can happen in that way, where sometimes they have people in person, but then perhaps there's some coming in online. And as I mentioned, there are hybrid events as well. And so if that's what works best for your particular community, that's an option as well. And so you can talk to us and let us know what's going to work best, and we'll work on things with you. We do have a budget, and it's not necessarily hard in stone, but all expenses within that budget can be covered to the best of our ability and up to these limits. So we have $500 available for venue and room rental. We have an extra $100 for equipment and extras. Some communities have to rent audio visual equipment. Others, maybe they need help with printing costs, but they've got other costs, you know, that are covered. So we have a little bit of flexibility with that, up to $900 for lunch, drinks, and snacks. Again, you know, if you've got 12 people coming, you're likely not going to need all $900, and that's great. But we have had events as many as 45 or 60 people, in which case $900, you're probably going to need most of that, just depending on what what you've got in terms of catering. And so for a total of $1,500 for community level expenses. The facilitation costs are covered, and there are costs to facilitation, make no mistake, there absolutely are. And we subcontract facilitators for all of these. And unless I'm coming in to do the facilitation, there are a few times when I come in and facilitate a talk, ask, listen. But there are facilitation costs, and those are covered by Do More. You won't see those expenses. And in terms of invoicing and reimbursement, what we it doesn't matter too much. You can, if let's say that you're a community group and you pay the expenses so that the people locally are paid and things are looked after, and then you invoice back to the Do More Ag Foundation, that's fine. If your expenses are paid up front, we will reimburse you. If you want us to pay, then you just need to make sure that those invoices or photos of receipts are sent directly to Michaela so that she can arrange to have your caterer or the venue or whatever it is paid. Michaela, anything you want to add in there? Any good practices around invoicing and reimbursement?
No, but I was going to mention sometimes you might have asked for an in-person event, but due to the location of your community and our facilitators, since we have such a small facilitator team, we might have to give you that virtual instead of the in-person. So that's just something that might impact your community if it's in person or virtual.
Yeah, so we'll think through that as hard. We're working really hard to increase the number of facilitators that we have across Canada with the Do More Agriculture Foundation, and so we are increasing the number of facilitators as fast as we can to find a way to ensure that all communities, if they choose to have an in-person event, that we can accommodate as best as possible. But like I said, it is still possible to have an in-person event at your community, and then the facilitator comes in virtually. As long as you have the internet capability for that and it's strong enough, then that is an option as well. And this is really the biggest point that we kind of wanted to make, is that the more local support you gather, the broader your reach. And there are so many people in your community, and the conversation for mental health and the understanding that we need to do more to increase people's literacy and their understanding and their willingness to talk about mental health. More and more communities and groups are solidly behind this as an initiative. And so give them an opportunity to contribute to your event and strengthen your community engagement. The more you reach out across your community, the better and the stronger your event will be. That's about it for in terms of our presentation. Thank you so much for joining. I am going to turn off the recording and open the floor for any questions or discussion that you might have.